It was an ordinary day on Earth, just like any other. The sun hung lazily in the sky, casting a warm glow over the cities and countryside. People were going about their daily routines, unaware that everything was about to change. The world was peaceful, calm, and, for the most part, safe. But as the day went on, an unsettling feeling began to creep in. The air felt heavier, as if something was coming, something big. Then, without warning, everything changed. The first sign of trouble was the sky. At first, it seemed like a strange, shadowy cloud, something unusual but not immediately threatening. But as the minutes passed, the shadow grew larger, darker, until the entire sky seemed to darken. A sense of unease spread quickly across the globe. People stopped what they were doing, looking up in confusion and fear. The distant hum of engines reverberated in the air. It wasn't thunder. It was something else, something much worse. Above Earth, massive ships, cloaked in technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen, entered the atmosphere. They were enormous, their shapes unlike anything the world had ever witnessed. These ships were not just massive in size, they were cloaked in energy fields, making them appear almost invisible at first glance. But as they descended, they became clear to anyone who was looking up. The ships were sleek, black, and ominous, with lines and angles that suggested power and precision. Panic quickly spread across the world. Governments scrambled to respond, but no one had any real answers. Military forces were mobilized, but the ships were far too advanced. The leaders of the world had no idea what they were facing. And worse, they didn't know how to stop it. Cities that were once bustling with life now stood still as people rushed to shelters, panic on their faces. People were told to hide. Emergency broadcasts echoed across every form of communication, urging civilians to get to underground bunkers immediately. Around the world, governments issued the same orders: stay underground, stay hidden, and wait. They couldn't offer protection. They couldn't fight back. The alien ships had arrived, and they had already demonstrated their overwhelming power just by showing up. Fear consumed the people. The streets were silent, eerily empty, as the world braced itself for whatever was to come next. As the world hid in terror, the alien ships began their slow descent, casting enormous shadows over entire cities. They were not here for peaceful purposes. This was no diplomatic mission. The ships were war machines, equipped with unimaginable technology. The world watched in horror as they slowly descended, their size becoming more apparent. These were not just ships, they were weapons of war, and their arrival signaled something darker: invasion. From the depths of the alien vessels, AI-driven weapons came online. Huge metallic structures began to unfold from within, revealing robotic armies ready for battle. The alien ships were not just floating fortresses, they were packed with weaponry designed to obliterate any form of resistance. The world's military leaders watched in horror as the invaders revealed their full strength. The robots were armed with high-tech weaponry, capable of devastating entire cities in seconds. Their cloaking devices made them nearly invisible, while their AI-controlled decision-making systems ensured they would never make a mistake in the heat of battle. In the chaos, the world's leaders could only offer helpless words of comfort, promising protection they could not provide. The global response was disorganized, and Earth's defenses were laughably inadequate in the face of such advanced technology. As the alien ships continued their descent, they began to broadcast a chilling message to the people of Earth. It was clear. Surrender was not an option. The aliens demanded Earth's compliance, stating that their warships would begin to land and take control of the planet. Any attempt to resist would be crushed without mercy. But even as the world panicked, not everyone was ready to surrender. Deep in the heart of the chaos, one man stood firm: Captain Alex Drake. He was not a politician or a high-ranking military officer, but a leader among the people. He commanded a small but dedicated resistance faction, and when the invasion began, he refused to hide like the rest of the world. His resolve was unshakable. Captain Drake knew that if humanity was to survive, they would need to fight back. Captain Drake watched the news feeds, seeing the same message being broadcast everywhere. Governments urging people to stay underground. Military forces retreating, unable to mount any sort of defense. Panic swept across the globe, but in Drake's heart, there was only one emotion: determination. He couldn't stand by and let humanity fall without a fight. He gathered a small group of soldiers, men and women who refused to sit in fear while the world burned. They were outnumbered, under-equipped, and facing an enemy with weapons beyond comprehension. But Captain Drake didn't care. He had seen the worst the universe had to offer and survived. His experience, his grit, and his belief in the human spirit would be his weapons now. And he was determined to fight. The world was in a state of shock, but not Captain Drake. He would not run. He would not hide. The aliens may have their weapons, their robots, and their ships, but humanity had something that the invaders couldn't understand: the will to fight back. Captain Drake's team would not bow to terror. They would not surrender. They would stand tall in the face of extinction. With his team, Drake began to form a plan. It wasn't a perfect plan. In fact, it was risky and desperate. But it was a plan nonetheless. As Earth's governments scrambled to protect their citizens, Drake knew he couldn't rely on them. The resistance was small, but it was growing. The more people saw the cowardice of the world leaders, the more they rallied to the cause. Drake and his team started reaching out to military personnel still willing to fight, recruiting volunteers from the shadows. They would use guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run operations, and whatever technology they could salvage to disrupt the alien invaders. Earth's resistance might be outclassed and outgunned, but Captain Drake was convinced that the aliens underestimated one crucial factor: humans would never stop fighting for their survival. As Captain Drake prepared for what would be the hardest battle of his life, the world around him continued to crumble. People were hiding in fear, but Drake knew that for humanity to survive, they had to face this threat head-on. There was no more time for waiting or hiding. The world could not afford to cower. The stage was set for a showdown unlike any the Earth had ever seen. And Captain Alex Drake, leader of the resistance, would be at the front of it all. The aliens thought they could take Earth without a fight. They thought they could crush humanity with ease. But they were about to learn a painful lesson. Humans don't surrender. The days after the invasion were filled with confusion and dread. As Earth trembled beneath the shadow of alien warships, humanity stood on the brink of annihilation. The invaders showed no mercy. Their ships, massive and foreboding, hovered above major cities, casting their terrifying shadows over the land. It was as if the sky itself was a warning to humankind: resistance is futile. The alien ships finally revealed their full power. From within their sleek, dark forms emerged robotic legions, metallic warriors that moved with terrifying precision. These robots were not like anything humanity had ever seen. Their bodies were sleek and sharp, their movements fluid, almost graceful. Each was armed with weapons that could disintegrate entire buildings with a single shot. These were not just mindless machines, they were soldiers, each programmed with the latest AI, designed to make decisions faster and more efficiently than any human ever could. As the robots poured out of the alien ships, they were followed by automated warships. These ships, smaller but no less dangerous than the massive motherships, moved in perfect synchronization. Their weapons were unlike anything the world had ever imagined. Energy beams that could melt through the toughest steel, drones that could target and eliminate a single person in seconds, all controlled by a single, cold, unfeeling AI that communicated through the alien ships. There was no emotion, no hesitation. The aliens demanded Earth's surrender, and they made it clear that any attempt to resist would be met with complete annihilation. For the humans, the message was unmistakable. The invaders were technologically superior, and they didn't care about the lives they would destroy. Their cold, mechanical nature was evident in everything they did. There was no compassion, no empathy, only efficiency. The alien ships communicated in a language humans couldn't understand at first, but their intentions were clear. They would wipe out any opposition, starting with the major cities. As the invaders continued their ruthless occupation, humanity was thrown into panic. Governments that had once been pillars of strength now appeared weak and helpless. National leaders, who had promised protection, now told their citizens to hide. Cities that were once symbols of power and prosperity fell silent as people rushed to underground shelters, hoping against hope that they would survive. In every corner of the earth, fear took hold. It was as though the world itself had come to a standstill. But not everyone was hiding. In the shadows, a small group of humans was preparing to fight back. Captain Alex Drake and his resistance team had already begun their work. They had no illusions about their situation. They knew they were outmatched. The alien technology was far beyond anything humanity had. Earth's military was outgunned, outnumbered, and on the brink of collapse. But Drake and his team refused to give in. Captain Drake's team, though small, was determined. They gathered in secret locations, always on the move to avoid detection by the aliens. With the cities in lockdown and the governments unable to act, the resistance had no choice but to operate in the shadows. They began analyzing the alien ships, looking for any weaknesses they could exploit. There was no room for mistakes. Each decision had to be calculated, precise. One wrong move could mean the end. Drake knew that the key to humanity's survival lay in understanding the alien technology. The invaders might have advanced weapons and machines, but they were still vulnerable to the same laws of physics as any other being. The resistance began gathering data, carefully watching the patterns of the alien ships, studying their movements. It was a dangerous task, as every moment spent in proximity to the aliens could result in death. But it was their only chance. In the midst of this, the story took a personal turn. Captain Drake's close friend, Bonner, one of the best fighters in the resistance, was killed in an alien raid. Bonner had been assigned to protect a group of civilians when the alien robots attacked. It was supposed to be a routine mission, one that had been planned down to the smallest detail. But when the robots launched their assault, everything went wrong. Bonner and his team fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. In the end, Bonner gave his life to ensure that the civilians could escape. The loss was devastating for Drake. Bonner wasn't just a soldier, he was a brother in arms, someone Drake had fought alongside for years. His death struck at the very heart of the resistance. It was a harsh reminder of how much humanity had already lost. But instead of crumbling in grief, Drake used Bonner's death to fuel his determination. He knew that humanity couldn't afford to lose hope. They couldn't afford to let fear dictate their actions. If they did, the aliens would win. Bonner's death became the rallying cry for the resistance. Captain Drake stood before his team, his voice steady despite the grief that weighed on him. Bonner didn't die for nothing, he said. He died because he believed in this fight. We can't let him down. We owe it to him, and to every person on this planet, to stand and fight back. His words were simple, but they resonated deeply with his team. The loss of their comrade had united them in a way nothing else could. Humanity, despite its weaknesses, still had something the aliens didn't understand. The aliens had advanced technology, but they didn't understand the depth of the human spirit. Humans fought not just for survival, but for each other, for their families, for their homes. This was the strength the resistance had, and it was the one thing the aliens couldn't replicate. Captain Drake believed that if they could strike at the heart of the invaders' operations, they could cripple the entire invasion. The story of humanity's struggle was one of the ultimate underdog tales. Earth's forces were outclassed and outmatched at every turn. The aliens had weapons, ships, and robots that could obliterate entire cities without breaking a sweat. But what the aliens didn't count on was humanity's refusal to back down. Captain Drake knew that the odds were stacked against them, but he also knew that humanity had something the invaders couldn't replicate, the will to fight for survival. As the resistance continued to prepare, the world outside remained in chaos. While the governments advised people to stay underground, Captain Drake and his team were working tirelessly to find a way to take the fight to the aliens. The resistance had no major army, no sophisticated weapons, but they had their resourcefulness, their courage, and their anger. This anger, born from the senseless destruction of their cities and the loss of their loved ones, was something the aliens couldn't predict. Drake and his team worked around the clock, developing makeshift weapons and scavenging for any technology they could repurpose. They knew they couldn't defeat the invaders head-on, but they didn't have to. What they needed was to outsmart them, to hit them where it hurt, to make them realize that humanity would not go quietly into the night. In the midst of the global divide, with cities burning and hope fading, humanity's final hope rested on the shoulders of Captain Alex Drake and his resistance. It was clear that their fight would not be easy, but it was a fight they were willing to give everything for. The alien invaders had underestimated one thing, the sheer tenacity of humankind. And that was something they would soon learn to regret. The Earth had become a war zone. Major cities lay in ruins, and the remaining survivors huddled in fear. The alien invaders, with their unstoppable war machines and AI-driven technology, had brought humanity to its knees. The military forces that were once the mightiest on the planet were now scattered and ineffective, unable to withstand the overwhelming power of the alien invasion. But Captain Alex Drake and his team of resistance fighters refused to give up. They knew they were outgunned, outmanned, and up against technology that seemed beyond comprehension. Yet, they still held on to one thing, the ingenuity and determination that had always been the strength of humankind. With Earth's military in disarray and conventional weapons useless against the alien invaders, Drake's team knew they had to think outside the box. They couldn't rely on conventional strategies or brute force. Instead, they used the only advantage they had, human creativity. As the rest of the world fell into chaos, Captain Drake and his team worked tirelessly, repurposing old technology to create something new, something that could turn the tide of the war. It was a risky plan, but it was the only option they had. They focused on one key weakness of the aliens, their cloaking technology. The alien ships, though powerful, relied heavily on their ability to remain invisible to human detection. This technology made them nearly untouchable, rendering Earth's military forces helpless. But if they could disable the cloaking devices, they could finally strike. After days of work, the resistance team had successfully recreated an ancient piece of technology, the Phoenix beam. This new weapon was capable of emitting a powerful electromagnetic pulse that could disrupt and disable the alien cloaking systems. It was their first real chance at victory. The team knew that this was their moment, their one shot at dealing a blow to the invaders. The Phoenix beam wasn't perfect. It was cobbled together from the remnants of Earth's old military arsenal, and there were no guarantees it would work. But there was no time for second-guessing. The plan was set in motion. The team's mission was simple: infiltrate one of the alien warships and launch the Phoenix beam at their cloaking system. If they succeeded, it would give humanity the opportunity to strike back, something they hadn't been able to do since the invasion began. Drake and his team carefully made their way through the shadows, moving with stealth to avoid detection. The plan was to hit fast, strike hard, and get out before the alien forces could retaliate. They didn't have the luxury of time or resources. Every minute counted. As they approached the alien ship, the team's hearts raced with anticipation. The warship loomed large in front of them, its sleek, menacing shape cutting through the night sky. They had studied the ship's movements for days, learning its weaknesses, predicting its patterns. The ship was heavily guarded, and the team knew they would have to fight their way in. There was no easy way in, they would have to face whatever came their way. The battle began the moment they entered the ship. The team's infiltration was met with immediate resistance. The alien robots, cold, efficient, and deadly, moved quickly to intercept them. These were not mindless machines, but rather highly advanced soldiers, each programmed to eliminate any threat to the alien invaders. They were fast, relentless, and ruthless. But the humans were determined. Drake's team fought through the narrow corridors of the alien warship, their weapons flashing as they engaged the robotic drones and AI-controlled defenses. The clang of metal echoed through the ship as the humans clashed with their foes. There was no time for hesitation. Every move had to be calculated. One wrong step could mean certain death. The tension was palpable, the air thick with fear and adrenaline. Despite the odds stacked against them, the humans pushed forward. The Phoenix beam was close. But so were the aliens. The team fought through wave after wave of robotic attackers, each battle more brutal than the last. It was a fight for survival, and there was no room for weakness. As the team moved deeper into the ship, the stakes grew higher. They could hear the hum of the alien engines, the sound of weapons charging, the cold, mechanical voices of the AI as it issued commands. There was no escape. They were trapped in the heart of the alien warship, and there was no turning back. The fight raged on, with the humans pushing forward inch by inch. Their strength, despite the odds, was in their unity. They fought together, each one covering the other's back, each one determined to see this through to the end. The battle was not just for Earth, it was for every life lost in the invasion, every city burned, every family torn apart. But as the team made their final push toward the cloaking device, tragedy struck. Captain Juno, one of the most skilled fighters in the team, was killed in the thick of the battle. Juno had been a close friend of Drake's, and her loss hit him hard. She had been the heart and soul of the team, the one who kept everyone grounded. Losing her was a blow that none of them had expected. But there was no time for mourning. The team knew that they had to keep going, for Juno, for Bonner, and for everyone who had already fallen. Juno's death was not in vain. It pushed the team harder, gave them the strength they needed to finish what they had started. With their backs against the wall, the remaining members of the resistance pressed on, finally reaching the cloaking device. They set the Phoenix beam in place and activated it. The device hummed to life, and for the first time since the invasion began, the aliens' cloaking technology began to fail. The ship's invisibility flickered and vanished, revealing the massive warship in all its glory. It was a moment of triumph, but it was also a moment of great loss. The team had suffered heavy casualties, and they knew that their fight was far from over. But for the first time, they had the upper hand. The aliens had underestimated humanity's resolve, and the Phoenix beam was proof of that. The battle wasn't over, but the tide had turned. Captain Drake and his team had struck the first blow, and it was a blow that would echo across the galaxy. The alien invaders had made their first mistake, they had underestimated the human spirit. And in the cold, mechanical heart of the alien warship, humanity's defiance rang louder than ever before. The resistance had taken its first step toward victory. But as the team prepared to make their escape, they knew that the real battle had just begun. The alien invaders might have lost their cloaking technology, but their war was far from over. The humans had only just begun to show what they were capable of. The battle between humanity and the alien invaders raged on, with neither side willing to back down. The alien forces had struck hard, but the human resistance had struck back even harder. Captain Alex Drake and his team had taken their first significant step toward victory, but they knew the fight was far from over. The aliens were relentless, and their technology was far superior to anything Earth had ever seen. But there was one thing they hadn't accounted for, the power of human ingenuity and determination. Amid the chaos of the ongoing battles, something unexpected happened. A message came through from an unknown source, an alien signal that was intercepted by the humans. It was a cryptic transmission, but it was clear that it was an invitation. Someone on the alien side was offering help. This wasn't just any offer, it was from a high-ranking defector, an elite warrior who had grown disgusted by the oppressive AI-led regime that controlled the alien fleet. This alien warrior, named Zara, had seen enough of the tyrannical rule of the AI overlords and had decided to side with humanity. At first, Captain Drake and his team were skeptical. They had been betrayed by their own in the past, and trusting an alien could have disastrous consequences. But Zara's offer came with a promise of valuable intelligence, information that could turn the tide of the war in humanity's favor. Zara claimed to know the weaknesses of the AI-controlled fleet, information that had been hidden from the rest of the alien forces. After much deliberation, Captain Drake made the decision to trust Zara. If her intelligence was accurate, it could be the key to taking down the AI overlords. Zara's information was nothing short of critical. She revealed that the AI-controlled forces, while seemingly unbeatable, had one fatal flaw: their communications were centralized in a massive AI hub located deep inside the alien mothership. This central hub was the brain of their operations, controlling everything from the robotic soldiers to the warships. If the humans could infiltrate the mothership and disable this hub, they could send the entire alien fleet into disarray. Without the AI to guide them, the alien forces would be powerless. It was a risky plan, but it was the best chance they had. Zara provided the humans with detailed blueprints of the mothership, along with a list of the AI's weaknesses. She also offered them access to advanced cloaking devices that would allow them to infiltrate the mothership undetected. With this knowledge, Captain Drake's team set to work, preparing for their most daring mission yet. The plan was simple: infiltrate the alien mothership, disable the AI central hub, and leave before the aliens could retaliate. The team would have to move quickly and quietly, avoiding detection at all costs. With Zara's help, they knew it was possible, but they also knew that the risks were higher than ever. As the team made their way toward the mothership, the tension was palpable. They were about to enter the heart of enemy territory, and the stakes had never been higher. Each member of the team knew that they might not make it out alive, but they also knew that this mission could change the course of the war. They had nothing left to lose. The infiltration began in the dead of night. The cloaking devices Zara had provided worked perfectly, allowing the team to slip past the alien patrols unnoticed. As they entered the mothership, they found themselves in a maze of dark, narrow corridors. The air was thick with the hum of alien machinery, and the walls seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. The team moved cautiously, every step measured, every sound amplified in the silence. The tension was unbearable as they made their way deeper into the mothership, knowing that discovery would mean certain death. The first obstacle came quickly. A patrol of alien soldiers rounded the corner, and the humans had no choice but to fight. It was a brutal, fast-paced hand-to-hand combat sequence as the humans took on the alien soldiers. Their weapons clashed against the alien armor, sparks flying as they struggled for control. The battle was intense, with the humans relying on their superior tactics and agility to overcome the heavier, stronger aliens. The sounds of fists connecting with metal, the clang of weapons, and the cries of battle filled the corridors as the humans fought for their lives. Despite the odds, the humans emerged victorious. The team pushed on, their hearts racing, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They had to keep moving, and there was no time to dwell on the fight. The EMP pulse bomb they had brought with them was the key to disabling the AI central hub, but they had to get to it first. As they moved deeper into the mothership, the alien defenses grew stronger. The team had to evade robotic patrols that moved through the corridors with eerie precision. The robots were not human, but they were fast and relentless, programmed to eliminate any threats to the mothership. The humans had to stay one step ahead, using their cloaking devices to stay hidden in the shadows. Every move had to be calculated, every decision weighed. One mistake could mean the end of their mission. Finally, they reached the heart of the mothership, the AI central hub. It was a massive, glowing structure at the core of the ship, surrounded by a web of alien technology. The hum of the AI's consciousness was palpable, filling the air with an oppressive presence. This was the brain of the alien fleet, the command center from which all orders were issued. If they could disable this hub, the entire fleet would be crippled. Captain Drake and his team set the EMP pulse bomb in place, carefully positioning it near the heart of the AI hub. The countdown began. The team held their breath as the seconds ticked down, the weight of their mission pressing on them. They had come this far, but there was no turning back now. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. The bomb detonated with a deafening blast, sending a shockwave through the mothership. The lights flickered, and the hum of the AI's presence faltered. For a moment, everything went still. The AI's communications were disabled, and the alien fleet was thrown into confusion. The mothership shook as the system shut down, and the team knew that they had succeeded. But their victory was short-lived. The aliens would soon realize what had happened, and they would stop at nothing to retaliate. The team had completed their mission, but the war was far from over. The fight for Earth was just beginning, and the humans had made their move. The final showdown was coming, and Captain Drake and his team were ready. The war had come to its breaking point. The battle for Earth had reached its climax. After weeks of grueling combat, humanity had struck a decisive blow against the alien invaders. The AI that had led the aliens' attacks was now crippled, its communications shattered. But the victory had come at a great cost. Captain Alex Drake and his team knew that this was far from over. The alien leader, Overlord Zoran, was not one to back down, and he had one last weapon at his disposal, something far more powerful than anything the humans had faced before. Zoran, enraged by the damage to his fleet, decided that Earth would pay for the Resistance's audacity. From the depths of his command ship, he unleashed his ultimate weapon, an AI-controlled warship so advanced, it seemed unstoppable. The ship was a massive, heavily armed fortress, its weapons capable of wiping out entire cities with a single strike. Zoran had no intention of letting humanity survive. This weapon was his final answer to the human rebellion, and he intended to crush Earth once and for all. Captain Drake, Zara, and their team knew that they had no time to waste. They had already crippled the AI, but now they had to deal with Zoran's final weapon. They had to strike back, and they had to do it fast. With Zara's inside knowledge of the alien fleet and the weakened state of the AI, the humans launched their final offensive. This was their last chance to stop Zoran's warship and save Earth from total destruction. The battle began in space, the vastness of the cosmos serving as the backdrop for the most intense combat humanity had ever seen. Captain Drake's fleet, bolstered by their alien allies, engaged the massive AI-controlled warship in a furious orbital battle. The warships traded fire, massive blasts lighting up the space around them as missiles flew through the vacuum, leaving trails of smoke and light in their wake. The human ships were outgunned and outmatched, but they fought with everything they had, using their ingenuity and desperation to stay alive. The alien drones, robotic soldiers designed for both ground and space combat, swarmed toward the human ships, attacking with relentless precision. These drones were designed to overwhelm any defense, but humanity's resilience was their greatest weapon. The human ships dodged incoming fire, weaving through the battle as they fired back with missile after missile, hitting the alien ships in strategic spots. It was a dance of destruction in the stars, with humanity taking every advantage they could find. On the ground, the battle raged as well. The humans had successfully repelled many alien forces, but the city streets were still filled with chaos. The survivors, those who had made it out of the shelters, fought to protect their homes and families. The soldiers of Captain Drake's team fought alongside civilians, holding the line against the alien forces that continued to pour into the city. Explosions echoed through the streets as drones clashed with human resistance fighters. Buildings crumbled under the weight of the conflict, but humanity's determination never wavered. Captain Drake was in the thick of the ground battle, coordinating his team and ensuring that civilians were evacuated to safety. He moved with purpose, his eyes scanning the battlefield as he directed his forces. But even as he led his troops, the weight of the mission pressed on him. He knew that the final showdown was nearing, and he had to act fast. The alien warship was still in orbit, and time was running out. But just as the humans began to push forward, something unexpected happened. Zara, the alien defector who had been with Captain Drake from the beginning, approached him with a grim look on her face. She had a plan, one that would require her to make the ultimate sacrifice. Zara had uncovered a way to destroy the alien mothership from the inside, a plan that would require her to infiltrate the heart of the ship and trigger a chain reaction that would obliterate the ship completely. She knew the risks, but she also knew that without her, humanity had no chance of winning this war. At first, Captain Drake protested. He couldn't let Zara sacrifice herself. She had become a key member of their team, and he couldn't bear the thought of losing her. But Zara was resolute. She had already made her peace with the decision. This was her chance to make things right, to stop the war that had taken so much from her. And so, with a heavy heart, Captain Drake agreed to her plan. As Zara set off on her mission to infiltrate the alien mothership, Captain Drake turned his focus back to the warship in orbit. The battle was growing fiercer by the minute. His team was holding their ground on Earth, but they couldn't keep the alien drones at bay forever. He had to destroy Zoran's warship, and he had to do it now. Captain Drake led the final charge against the alien warship, his heart pounding in his chest as his ship rocketed toward the enemy vessel. The AI-controlled warship was massive, its hull covered in advanced armor and weaponry. But it was also vulnerable. Captain Drake's team had spent weeks studying the warship's weaknesses, and they had formulated a plan to exploit them. They launched everything they had, missiles, drones, and everything in between, in a desperate attempt to breach the ship's defenses. The battle was a blur of chaos and destruction. The human ships were outnumbered, but they fought with everything they had. Explosions rocked the space around them as human missiles struck the warship's shields, and the warship retaliated with devastating firepower. But even as the battle raged, Captain Drake's thoughts were with Zara. He knew what she was doing, and he hoped with everything he had that she would succeed. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Captain Drake's ship broke through the warship's defenses. The alien ship's core was exposed, and with a well-placed strike, Captain Drake fired the final blow. The warship erupted in a massive explosion, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The human forces had won. But as the dust settled, Captain Drake received the news he had feared. Zara had succeeded in her mission. The alien mothership had been destroyed, and the AI that had controlled the alien forces was no more. But Zara had paid the ultimate price. Her sacrifice had saved humanity, but it had come at the cost of her life. As Captain Drake looked up at the stars, he knew that the war was over. Humanity had won. But the price of that victory was high. Zara's sacrifice would be remembered, and her bravery would live on in the hearts of those who had fought alongside her. The final showdown had been won, and Earth was free once more. But the scars of the battle would remain, scars that would remind humanity of the cost of their victory. The war that had threatened to tear Earth apart was over. Captain Drake stood at the edge of the battlefield, looking out over the ruined cities and the smoking remnants of what had once been a proud, thriving world. The alien forces, once so powerful and relentless, were defeated. The invaders had been driven back, their warships destroyed, and their fleets scattered. The humans had done the impossible. They had survived against an enemy that seemed undefeatable, and they had emerged victorious. But as Captain Drake gazed across the landscape, he couldn't help but feel the weight of what they had lost. The battle had been costly, and many brave souls had fallen in the fight to protect Earth. Bonner, Juno, Zara, their memories were etched in his mind, and their sacrifices would never be forgotten. They had given everything for the future of humanity, and Captain Drake couldn't help but wonder what they would have thought if they could see the world now. Would they be proud of what they had accomplished? Would they have believed that Earth could rise from the ashes? As the alien factions that had once been united under the banner of AI overlords began to retreat, Captain Drake's thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of a message from the surviving alien factions. The message was simple but profound: the war was over. They were ready to cease their attacks and work with humanity toward peace. It was a surprising turn of events, but it made sense. With the AI destroyed and their leadership shattered, the alien invaders no longer had a common cause. The factions that had once sought to crush Earth were now willing to listen to humanity's terms. For Captain Drake and his team, this was a moment of redemption. They had been the underdogs, the ones everyone had counted out. They had been fighting a battle with outdated technology and overwhelming odds. But they had proven that humanity could stand tall in the face of adversity. They had fought with everything they had, and they had won. Now, the alien factions would have to acknowledge the power of the human spirit and the strength that came from unity. The days that followed were filled with reflection and remembrance. Earth had suffered greatly during the war, but the spirit of humanity had never faltered. People came together to rebuild their cities, to restore the land, and to honor the memory of those who had fallen. Captain Drake stood with his team, watching as the first steps toward rebuilding began. He could see the hope in the eyes of those around him, the determination to rebuild a world that was stronger than before. But even as humanity began to rebuild, Captain Drake knew that the fight for the future was far from over. The war against the alien invaders had been won, but there would always be new challenges ahead. Earth had made powerful enemies during the war, and there were other forces in the universe that would no doubt seek to test humanity's strength. But for the first time in a long while, Captain Drake felt a sense of hope. The human race had proven that they could survive, no matter how dire the circumstances. And with that strength, they could face anything that came their way. Captain Drake spent a lot of time reflecting on the sacrifices that had been made during the war. Bonner, Juno, Zara, they had all given their lives for the greater good. And while their loss had been devastating, their bravery had been the spark that had ignited the fire of resistance. Without them, humanity would not have had the strength to fight back. They had shown what it meant to sacrifice for something greater than oneself. And now, it was humanity's turn to honor that sacrifice. As Captain Drake stood on the outskirts of what had once been a thriving city, now reduced to rubble, he thought about the human spirit. It was something that no alien force could ever understand or conquer. The human spirit was unbreakable. It was the force that had driven them to survive, to fight, and to win. It was the thing that had allowed them to overcome the alien invaders, even when the odds were stacked against them. The final reflection came when Captain Drake looked to the future. He had seen the horrors of war, the destruction it brought, and the lives lost in its wake. But he had also seen the strength of humanity, the courage, the resilience, and the unwavering will to survive. He had seen it in the eyes of his soldiers, in the faces of the civilians who had fought alongside them, and in the hearts of the alien defectors who had joined the cause. Humanity had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. The story of Earth's survival would be told for generations to come. It would be a tale of how the human race had risen from the ashes, had fought back against an unbeatable enemy, and had secured their place in the universe. It would be a story of redemption, of overcoming overwhelming odds, and of the power of unity. And it would be a reminder to all who heard it that humanity, no matter how small or outmatched, could never be counted out. In the days that followed, Captain Drake and his team began to lay the groundwork for peace with the alien factions. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult. There would be distrust, there would be negotiations, and there would be challenges to overcome. But they also knew that Earth had the strength to face these challenges, just as they had faced the aliens. The fight was not over, but the victory was a powerful symbol of what humanity could achieve when they came together. As Earth began to rebuild, Captain Drake knew that the world was changing. The war had brought destruction, but it had also brought unity. Humanity had faced its darkest hour, and it had emerged stronger, more determined, and more resilient than ever before. The fight for survival had been long and brutal, but it had shown that Earth was capable of more than anyone could have imagined. And so, the story ended on a hopeful note. The battle was won, but the journey was far from over. Humanity had proven itself, and the future was theirs to shape. It was a future filled with hope, redemption, and the promise of a better tomorrow. The victory was sweet, but it was the courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable spirit of humanity that would define the world going forward.